Double tragedy struck a Hunt Valley family on Tuesday night after a hearse carrying their loved one was involved in an accident that left Mr. Caleb Mapaya's corpse defaced and bruised. His widow, Mrs. Cecilia Chingaya Mapaya, who was seated next to the driver of the hearse, was thrown out of the vehicle and trapped underneath. She was rushed to Hana District Hospital, but later succumbed to injuries sustained in the freaky accident. The Manila Post understands that Mr. Mapaya's coffin was broken into pieces, leaving the corpse on the ground. The Mapayas were traveling to Hunt Valley for burial in a Harare-based funeral services vehicle with two other relatives, Ms. Mary Muredzi and Mr. Wyson Makina. Mr. Paul Chatadza was behind the wheel while his assistant, Mr. Brian Chidhakwa, was also in the vehicle. Mr. Chatadza is said to have lost control of the Mitsubishi Colt double cab, resulting in the vehicle veering off the road. Messrs. Makina, Chatadza, and Chidhakwa, as well as Ms. Muredzi, sustained injuries. The4 were admitted at Hana District Hospital on Tuesday night before being discharged on Wednesday morning. Having traveled in January for medical examinations, Mr. Mapaya died in Chitingwiza last week. The Mapaya family contracted Mr. Chatadza's Chats Funeral Services to ferry their loved one from Chitingwiza to their Hunt Valley rural home for burial. Mr. Chatadza has since been arrested and is assisting the police with investigations. Acting Manicaland Provincial Police spokesperson, Assistant Inspector Wiseman Chinyoka confirmed the incident. The corpse was thrown out of the coffin and it landed on the ground. The driver was speeding when he lost control of the vehicle. We urge motorists to desist from speeding and always adhere to road traffic rules, said Astin's Chinyoka. He said when the vehicle veered off the road, it hit the road embankment and rolled several times, throwing the widow and her husband's coffin out. The accident occurred at the 22-kilometer peg along the Selborne-Aberfoyle Road in Chipupuri village, Hunt Valley. Ms. Muredzi, who is the late Mrs. Mapaya's niece, said although she survived the horror crash, it will haunt her for a very long time. My aunt and her husband's corpse were the only ones that were thrown out of the vehicle. All the doors were locked and they were still locked when we were rescued by passers-by. People say she was thrown out through the window, but it is unbelievable as all the windows were closed before the accident. After I was rescued, I noticed that my aunt was missing, and we all rushed to look for her. We realized that she was trapped under the vehicle, and we managed to rescue her. Unfortunately, she died upon admission to Hana District Hospital. It is really painful, said Ms. Muredzi as she struggled with emotions. She said Mr. Mapaya's body sustained multiple injuries on the legs, head and ribs. Narrating the events that took place prior to the accident, Ms. Muredzi said Mr. Chatadza had told his passengers that the car's brakes had failed. He told us that the brakes had ceased as we were descending the steep slope and encouraged us not to panic. I thought he was joking as he had been cracking jokes all the way from Chitingwiza. Shortly afterwards, the vehicle veered off the road and everything became a blur, said Ms. Muredzi. In an interview with the Manila Post on Wednesday, Mr. Mapaya's only surviving brother, Mr. Solomon Mapaya, said he is still in shock. He said he could neither confirm nor deny that the corpse sustained multiple injuries. I still cannot believe that both of them are gone. When the news filtered through last night, it felt like it was one of the worst nightmares I'll have ever had. Reality only sunk this morning, he said. Mr. Mapaya described his late brother and sister-in-law as jovial people who were pillars of strength for the Mapaya family. He was the family head and that burden is now left on my shoulders. The family has lost two members who were dear to everyone, he said. He said since his brother's first coffin was broken into pieces, they were waiting for two coffins to be delivered from Harare for them to proceed with burial arrangements for the couple. All we can do is wait, but our wish is to bury the two side by side tomorrow, Thursday. The late couple's son, Mr. Tatenda Mapaya, said his mother's death was a sharp slap to an already swollen cheek. We were on my father's funeral wake, only to hear that the hearse had been involved in an accident and that my mother had died too. I thought they were joking, but this is the sad reality. The pain is just too much, but I guess that is what they both wanted. Maybe they wanted to be together even in death, but it is really painful, he said. Mrs. Mapaya's aunt, Mrs. Flora Gandiwa, was at a loss for words, saying they have never experienced such a tragedy in their family. It is a taboo for someone to die while on her way to bury her husband. The fact that the corpse sustained some injuries is scary. How can a corpse be thrown out of an intact and secured coffin? The funeral service provider should tell us what really happened, said Mrs. Gandiwa. A villager, Mr. Winifred Muringanwa, who was among the first people to arrive at the accident scene, said the site was a replica of a horror movie scene, with Mr. Mapaya's corpse lying a few meters away from the car, while his wife was groaning as she was trapped under the vehicle. What I witnessed still traumatizes me. I was at home when I heard screams and rushed to investigate. We rescued all the injured passengers who were rushed to Hana District Hospital by well-wishers, said the man. The couple is survived by 6 children. The Insurance Pensions Commission is on record saying there are several bogus funeral insurance companies operating in Zimbabwe. The unregistered funeral assurance companies often deploy agents to scout for business at hospital morgues. It could not be immediately established if Chat's Funeral Services is a registered funeral insurance company.